Helpful gameplay habits. 1. Deal your starting hand face down into a pattern of 7 to make sure sleeves don't stick together for an accidental 8, which results in a forced mulligan to 5. 2. Declare all phases. Avoid shortcuts. Start every turn with the mantra of untap, upkeep, draw. Give them a chance to respond between each action, so you don't reveal extra information. Double-check the board for triggers before you begin your next action. If you miss your May effects, it can cost you games, and it's really bad when the game has to rewind the missing a must trigger. How embarrassing. 3. Declaring spells before tapping mana will reduce mistapped mana. You can't say oops and untap lands you tapped erroneously. This is actually the right way, but most people float the mana before declaring the spell instead. 4. Write down each card in their hand when you reveal it with a duress. Then, cross off cards as you see them played to know what's left in their hand. 5. Leave mana open during combat to bluff instant speed combat tricks and minimize blocks. Then cast your sorcery speed things second main phase. 6. Wait until the last possible moment for instant speed effects. There's a point where it needs to happen either way, and waiting until that point means you have more information and you're withholding information, so you're making better decisions with your responses, becoming more efficient and devastating, and giving them worse decisions. 7. When you're organizing your hand, don't fan it out and make it obvious that you're separating lands and non-lands. Grab a card, condense your hand into a stack, and stick the card on top or bottom. If you need a land and top deck one, don't just slap it onto the table immediately. Incorporate it into your hand and mix them around. Think for a bit, then play your land. This way, your opponent doesn't know you're desperate for lands, which can result in priority stifles on fetch lands or destroy target permanent effects hitting your lands. Similarly, pay attention to when they miss a land drop. 8. Play your land before casting a spell, so a force spike or mana leak doesn't unnecessarily get you, and so you can bluff a response. There are exceptions like landfall, and you want to know that you're taking a chance against blue doing so. Then you can weigh your risk to reward and analyze them for tells on what's in their hand. 9. Download an app on your phone with an accurate gatherer. Search for cards in other languages, or to check oracle wording or rules.
10. Plan your tapped lands wisely. If your turn 1 is a tapped land, they know you are getting it out of the way early and won't have a response. A lot of important things can happen on the first turn. Time your tapped lands appropriately, in accordance with how much mana you plan to use, so it can impact your game plan and mana spent the least. Make sure you tap a land before you return it to hand for a bounce land. And if you're on the draw, watch for going up to 8 cards in hand. 11. Use every mana available to you. Every untapped land at the beginning of your untapped phase is a wasted mana and a disadvantage. If you destroy a 3-mana creature with a 2-mana spell, you earned a 1-mana advantage. 12. Card advantage is a worthy goal. If you can remove 2 of their cards with one of yours, you have an advantage. Be careful about overextending into white, black, or red board wipes, or you may run into wrath of God, damnation, or blasphemous act. Be careful about swinging with everything into untapped blue, white, black mana, or you may run into ether spouts, ink shield, or settle the wreckage. 13. A mulligan has more drawbacks than just card disadvantage. You're less likely to get enough lands, less likely to have the right untapped land on turn 1, and less likely to have a 1-drop. If you do not have enough lands in your starting hand, you are barely more likely than 1/3 to draw one. So you may end up missing a land drop or two in the first 4 turns. 14. Instead of mana weaving between games, which is slow and frowned upon, focus on how you manage cards after each game. While picking up your cards used that game, make a pile of lands and a pile of non-lands. Shuffle them together evenly. Then pick an equal pile on top of your deck and shuffle them together. 15. When a longer tournament goes on, it is easy to get fatigued and miss things, which means you will be the most fatigued in the finals, where it matters most. Build processes and reminders into your habits until you do not have to think about it, and your fatigue drops dramatically. Extensive playtesting before the day of a tournament will reduce your fatigue and increase automatic trigger awareness as well. 16. Study the meta before the tournament. Go to mtgtop8.com and see what archetypes are most common in your format, and then find ways to playtest against them if you can. If not, watch someone playing that archetype online for a few games, especially against decks of the same style you're playing, such as Control, Aggro, Combo, Same Tribe, or a similar commander. Notice what makes their deck win, what functions the deck requires to become powerful, and also consider how you can interrupt it. Notice what beats them, and try to identify the turning point or vulnerability responsible. Notice what makes them sweat and what makes them scramble, and then identify how you can replicate that. 17. Bring a solid deck that you enjoy playing and that feels natural for your play style, rather than net decking the best deck just because. The more natural the deck process is for you, the less errors, fatigue, and tells you will exhibit. 18. After each round is over, if you finished with time left in the round, politely and quietly walk around the room and distantly spectate games that are still going on, particularly of players with similar records who you may face in future rounds.
Don't be too obvious about your posture and facial expressions. When in a tournament, it's easy to focus entirely on calculation and clean play, and forget about where your eyes are going, your finger tapping and calculations. Learn to calculate in your head without pointing or moving your mouth. Rein in your emotions like grins, confidence, excitement, insecurities, disgust, despair, and fear. If you don't have a poker face, then leave your hand face down on the table most of the time, and gaslight yourself about your situation until you believe the same thing all the time. It's better to have a consistent attitude than pretend the opposite of how you feel, which can be its own tell if done frequently. At top levels of play, this poker aspect is just as important as the deck you bring, and pros will go as far as calculating a card they don't have in hand, just so the opponent notices and plays around that card. The more comfortable you are with your own deck and lack of tells from practice, the more you can focus on your opponent's side of the table, more accurately predicting if they have that counterspell, board wipe, removal, or combat trick in hand to respond with. So you need to set a trap first, or if it's just some untapped lands bluffing you and you need to act now. Always bluff counterspells, and don't try to counter everything, or you won't have one when it matters. A resolved tester spell is often a trap, followed up by the real threat.
20. Pay attention to how your opponent shuffles his deck. If he's mana weaving or not actually randomizing, you should shuffle their deck when presented for cutting. Generally, it's a good idea to do this once at the start of each first game of a round to set a precedent. Be gentle, don't damage their cards while shuffling. 21. Understand the philosophy of who's the beatdown. This is a critical concept adapted by Magic theorist Mike Flores. In any given matchup, one deck is the aggressor, trying to win as fast as possible, and the other is the control, trying to stop the aggressor and win the long game. This isn't always determined by your deck list. Sometimes a control deck has to be the aggressor if they're facing a combo deck that will win on turn 4. Misidentifying your role is a leading cause of losses. If you have the control role, don't rush. Trade resources efficiently. If you are the beatdown, apply pressure and force them to have the answer. 22. Mental fortitude and tilt management. You will lose to variance. You will lose to mana screw. You will lose to opponents who top deck the one card that saves them. Accepting that probability governs the game allows you to detach emotionally from the outcome. If you go on tilt, your logic degrades, you miss triggers, and you make suboptimal plays. Treat every game as a puzzle to be solved, not a judgment of your worth. A clear head is your strongest card.